Hey folks, it's the next day and what we're going to do is harvest some worms from my other bins to load up Moby, the big 55-gallon drum bin. I came in, I set this bin up here, left the room, came back, and my cat Freya was just as comfortable as she could be right in the middle of it. I don't know what the worms, I think I know what the worms thought. They all went down. But it's kind of moist. I've been keeping the bins real moist because these guys are downstairs by the furnace and by the wood stove. And it's very, very dry down there. So I'm keeping them moist. They're going to dry out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to try to harvest at least 1,000 worms from 2 or 3 of my beds to put them into Moby. And I'm not sure how long it's going to take. Boy, there's a lot of worms in there. I'll give you guys a little ruffle up here. Fluffing up. I want to get worms of every age. Now I know the castings that I put in Moby already on the bottom of the bin, I know they contain a lot of cocoons. You know what? I'm wondering if I'm adding too much castings. I think what we're going to do, change to the change here, we're going to do a little light separation. I don't want to put all of these castings in there and take them out of there. So we're going to do the old hand pick thing. I don't have a bright light over this, but I think because there's as many worms as there are, I don't think it's going to be a problem to get them all out of there. Now I will probably shut up and put this on a time lapse or speed it up, because I don't think I can come up with enough to talk about while I'm doing all this. But anyway, hang tight and we will be back. In the interest of saving some time on this light separation, I went ahead and I pulled out this little lamp. That light will drive the worms down a little bit quicker out of the castings. Little baby. Little baby. I think I'm going to take that little baby and go feed him. I hate to do this, but I have a betta fish, Siamese fighting fish. I've never seen him fight, but he enjoys his little baby worms. This is Waldo. Hope that glare is not getting in the way too much. Come on, Waldo. Beautiful fish. Now, if I were doing a serious light separation, it would take a whole lot longer. But right now, the only thing I'm not concerned with the castings, I'm concerned with the worms. And these castings aren't quite ready for a harvest anyway. I want 3,000 worms to go into Moby. And no, I'm not going to count them. I am going to weigh them. So I'm going to say, let's just say 3 pounds. 3 pounds of worms. Now, I could probably get, well, I know I could get 3 pounds of worms out of this bin by itself, but I want this bin to continue on. And I'm just going to let them continue on minus 1,000 worms or so. And then I'll grab another bin, get another 1,000, another bin, and get another 1,000. And that will give us enough worms to get half of Moby populated. Notice the big log that I've got in there is a divider. I'm only going to fill half of Moby at a time so that I can make sure that by the time I put the bedding in the other side, the biology in the bin will creep over and make that more hospitable to the worms on the other side when I start that up. Something like that. That is a worm in a stick. Okay. Look comfortable. Breeding age. I hope I didn't separate you two because you're both breeding age and you're right next to each other. I'm sure they'll find each other again. 2 worms passing in the dark. Okay, I would say that is easily 1 pound there. So we will put this donor bed back together and grab another bin. Okay, bin number 2. Donor bin for Moby. Sorry, girls, I know. Now, we just fed these wet 3 days, 3 days ago, because tomorrow will be the 4th day and we'll feed a dry feeding. But as you can see, all of that food is gone. A little bit of the pumpkin left, but that is about it. These guys are voracious. Give that a minute or so for the light to drive them all down. So when I'm taking these worms out of this bin, the donor bin, to put into Moby, I'm taking probably, I'm going to say 2 pounds out of each one. And there's still a whole lot of worms in these bins, and you can kind of tell that just by the amount that I feed on the wet feeding days. I fed these 3 days ago. I feed them about 1.5 pounds almost 2 pounds of food besides the leaf bedding and the cardboard bedding and everything else that's in there. And then 3 days later, I feed them a dry feeding and they finish it. So I know there's quite a few worms in here. If there's 3 pounds, 4 pounds of worms and they're eating 2 pounds of food, well, that's a lot of food and that's a lot of worms. I found it is true. If you keep the bedding on the moist side, they do reproduce a lot quicker, a lot more often, I guess. It's a nice cocoon on the darker side. Not sure how well the camera's going to pick that up, but even in the cooler temperatures here in Connecticut, even in my 65-degree basement, they're still making cocoons. Whether they're going to hatch as fast as they will in the summertime, that's another story, but they don't seem to be having a problem. I do have to say, in the cooler temperatures, I think they definitely slow down as far as their activity, their movement goes. It's to be expected. I slow down in the cold too. We've got some cold weather coming next week. It'll be wind and cold. Why I live in a place where my face hurts when I go outside, I don't know. Another nice little cocoon. That one's a fairly young one. Go back. Go back to your parents. Unless I just took your parents and put them in the other bin, I don't know. You know, brings up a thought. I wonder if baby worms know who their parents are. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. All right, I'm going to guess that was about another pound and a half from this bin. So we are going to grab one more bin. And that should give us our 3 pounds to populate Moby bin. Okay, donor bin number 3 that came from my downstairs battalion 3 downstairs. We're currently in battalion 1. This is upstairs in the man cave. All these donor bins came from battalion B down in the man cave basement. Now this is one of my younger bins, and I'm not sure what the population is going to be in this one. But I think it'll give us enough worms to get us the 3 pounds that we're looking to get. You can see this one's much drier, and I attribute that to the amount of leaf matter that I have in this bin. I've really gone heavily into, oh, sorry guys, they're mating. All right, get in there, cover up. Okay, now I totally lost my train of thought. See that? All right, let's give these guys a moment to go down, get out of that light. Oh yeah, I think I was talking about the amount of leaves that I use in the bedding now. I'm fortunate that I've got a good chipper, shredder, outdoor type thing that I can just dump my leaves into and then shred them so that they're not all big leaves. Although I do put big leaves in there with them. I think when they mat down, the worms like to get in between them. But when I shred the leaves, they're more readily available for the bacteria and for the worms to eat. Also, really helps to make finding the cocoons easier too. I'm sure the camera's not showing it, but there's cocoons everywhere in here. That is a fresh one. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up, but that is a fresh cocoon. All right, I'm not a complete scientist. I don't know how old it is, but I know that when they're lighter color like that, usually means that they are more recently released by the worms. So when we get done here, we are going to take all of these donor worms and bring them down to Moby to populate that bin. I've been looking forward to making this bin for a long time. I got the room to do it, to put it there. I put it on wheels. The framework for it is on wheels so that I can move it out of the way if I have to, because oftentimes I use that area. So also what I did when I built that is I've got a plywood cover that can go on top to act as a table, because Moby is just outside of my seed starting room that I start all my seeds in for the farm. We'll be having videos on that shortly because it is January and I've got onions to get started. We'll be showing that. I'm going to have a playlist on the channel here. One for the worms, one channel for the bees, and one channel for what's going on at the farm. A little bit about the farm. I just started it. Even though I've been working the land for, I don't know, the last 15 years, it's now my farm. And I can do as I please. And I went from a probably 20 by 30 garden to a acre garden. Yeah, I love it. It's a lot of work, but I love it. A lot of the compost and the materials that I use for the worms here come from there. and a lot of the materials go back from the worms to the farm. Last year was my first year of really growing a lot on it, and I know you hear it all the time, worm castings are fantastic. Yeah, they are. The difference is just amazing. I've always used compost, and compost is amazing too. But since starting the worm farm and using the vermicompost, what a difference it makes. And I'll tell you, guys, ladies, folks, if you're not using worm casting tea on your plants, you're missing out. I mean, if you're already growing the worms, take the time to figure out how to do a good worm casting tea and get a good sprayer. I know a lot of folks in the area with farms. It's a really small town. It's a farming town. Everyone, well, not everyone, a lot of folks are going organic. And, that means, of course, not being able to use pesticides and herbicides and junk on your plants. Well, the addition of the worm casting tea sprayed on the leaves has just done amazing things for keeping out the blights and the other pests that eat up your plants. I'll be having videos on that, kind of showing it, how I apply it, how I do it, what the results are. We'll have that coming up soon. Come on, spring. Well, I must have picked the wrong spot to grab these worms from, because I didn't get a whole lot out of that batch. But like I said, this is a younger bin. All nice, healthy worms. It's not quite as many as the last two donors. That's okay. Let's see what we can do now. Looks like about the same population. And that's okay. There's a lot of cocoons in here. A lot of young baby worms. And a lot from the last batch I was picking out by hand. So I'm sure we're going to get our 3 pounds. All right. I think that will work. Yeah, I'm guessing we're close to 3 pounds. Let's go feed Moby. Okay, folks, I'm excited. We are about to populate Moby bin. We got just about 3 pounds of worms from the donor bins, and I have been keeping this moist, although it's still going to need more. Now, one of the other things that I thought about last night is besides adding more moisture, is that I am going to also add a little bit more bedding. And the bedding that I'm going to add, I'm going to show you here right now. Not sure how good this camera is going to pick this up. But what it is more worm castings and rabbit poo. And I figured what this is going to do, I'm going to place the worms right on here. And this is going to give them an area to crawl down into. That'll be a little bit more hospitable than just the old castings that I put in, the biochar, and the leaves. All right. I think that'll work. I feel like I should have a bottle of champagne. I don't know what that is. Okay. But here we go. Welcome home, girls. I figure it's not going to take too long. I've got a pretty bright light on here so I could film this a little bit better. I don't think it's going to take too long for them girls to make their way down. Oh, about the log here. I only wanted to fill this section and get that going and then add the worms to here. But as we go along here, as this gets populated, I'm going to keep moving this over and over and over and filling it with new bedding, kind of like a wedge system, if you will. And that way, I think it's just going to work out better that way. I could have easily gone ahead and filled the whole thing and taken out 6 pounds of worms from my donor bins, but I think I'm just going to keep it like this for now. I'm going to go ahead and do a video on this about every week, the progress of what's going on here. And that way you can watch along with me as to how everything goes. You're going to see it when I see it. It's going to be a totally transparent way of showing you how to start up a new bin.